Very well, gentlemen. Now we're going to go to our third segment, which is the central role of personal religion. You know, and I mean, we're talking about the philosophy of human or divine human collaboration. So, at the heart of this philosophy lies personal religion, the direct relationship between the individual and God, unmediated by institutional structures. All right. So, what's the nature of personal religion? It's direct communication or direct communion, immediate relationship with God without requiring intermediaries, the divine within. It's a living experience. It's dynamic, evolving spiritual connection rather than static belief. And that's something that Rick just mentioned. It's a living and evolving faith. There's an internal guidance, recognition of the divine presence within. It's a progressive growth. It's continuous spiritual development through experience and choice. It's not that I choose to believe in God and I choose to have faith. Next thing you know, your faith is gonna be tested. And anybody that has, started on this path can tell you that it's not only sunshine, roses, and lollipops. It is a lot of struggle. And I think that within that struggle is that where we find, that strength and that character. So it's very important to have that through experience. It's that progressive growth, and it has a practical application, expression of spiritual reality through daily living. And it sounds a cliche, but once you start in this path, you kind of walk in life, down the path, and you're helping people. And not that you go out of your way just to help people, but suddenly you just see that people are needing of help. You just see that there is things that you can do, not that you're going and finding anything. Just a simple smile. A simple smile can change somebody's life in a way that you can't even imagine. So that's that true religion is a meaningful way of living a dynamically face to face with the commonplace realities of everyday living. And central to this philosophy is the understanding of God as a fundamentally loving rather than wrathful. You know, God is a divine parenthood. God is the loving universal Father rather than a distant judge. And that's what Jesus taught us. It's not that wrathful God, but it's this loving Father. There's a supportive presence. There's a God who fosters growth rather than demands perfection, and this is very important. It's not who we are today, but what we strive to become each day. And that's, I think, very important. You know, there's a loving correction, there's a divine guidance that educates rather than punishes. In Spanish, we have a say, we when somebody is punishing us or scolding us, we say, no me regañes, oriéntame. Don't punish me, correct me, show me the way. So it's an unconditional acceptance, divine love that transcends human limitation, and it's a partnership. It's collaborative relationship rather than a master servant dynamic. And this is very important, and this is what I believe, and this is very personal. The will of God and to do the will of God is not to be the servant of God, is to understand that God's way of doing things and God's way of executing the universe is the most wiseful, most loving, and most grandiose way of doing things. And when you submit your will voluntarily to that, to say, I'm going to be part of that, and that's a collaboration, is when things, start to go your way. It's the famous secret. It's the famous law of attraction that we're talking about. And this is something that I really like, and what's the significance of a direct experience? It's experiential knowledge that truth is lived rather than merely believed. It's a personal discovery. It's finding God through individual seeking. It's unique relationship because each person's connection with God has distinctive qualities. There's an inner authority. There's a spiritual discernment developed through experience, and it's a continuous revelation, ongoing discovery of divine truth. And that's something that you can see with wise men. A wise man will always tell you that you can never, and there's not one day that you stop learning. Once you stop learning, you become unwise.
I think the easiest way for me to say this is Um, I always felt that I was taken care of, like somebody was taking care of me. And obviously, my parents, my earthly parents, were doing this, and other people as well. But I felt something beyond that, like is really taking care of me. And I think I cried a lot when I heard or read for the first time a very beautiful story of a person walking down the beach and basically saying, it's talking to God and saying, you know, I had very, very difficult times in my life and I never felt you. And is describing that when he feels God, he's walking down the beach and he can see his own footprints, but he can also see somebody else's footprints alongside his. And he says, and when I needed you the most, and I may cry here, so please forgive me. I can only see one set of footprints in the sand. And basically, God says, yes, yes, my son, this is exactly the time I was carrying you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
this image of somebody's sometimes carrying me. And then, interestingly enough, at one point, I was asking, what can I do for God? What can I, the small one, do for the Creator of all things? And there was a nice insight there where it may sound presumptuous now when I say it, but this is how I felt it. That sometimes even I can carry God on my shoulders. And what is it that I mean by that? Is there are some things that God cannot do without me, without he cannot experience this world through myself without me. And this is the greatest gift that I can give to the Creator of all things. This personal experience of my own life in this collaboration. So that's another angle of this collaboration where it's a gift that you give to the being that created everything. Without me, without anyone, right? It's not just that I'm special. Uh, that being's experience is not complete if I don't participate. So my participation willingly and as a gift is something that not only I can give my own experience to God, and of course each one of us is unique and special in the same way. So that's another level of the collaboration and the personal relationship. But that story of you know when you had the most difficult time, I was carrying you. That's why there's only one set of footprints on the sand.
That's
I love that
really
story.
beautiful. Yeah.
I think the topic of your segment is the central role of personal religion. And uh, that's a very valid point because personal religion is central to everything you are and everything you do. I mean, so for me, true religion, what is real religion, is your personal relationship with God. Your personal religion is your personal relationship with God, and that's the most important thing in your life. And so it's a personal relationship because God is a personality. Just like love comes from God, personality comes from God. So God is this person because he has this divine personality. So your relationship with God is like a human relationship.
Mhm.
When you're a child, your relationship with your mom is the closest relationship you have because she's taking care of you. Like Gabriel said, she's taking care of you. You can rely on her to be there when you need her. You talk with her, you see her every day. You have this personal relationship with your mom. Well, then you grow up, you get older, and you see some pretty girl, and you decide, I'd like to have a personal relationship with her. So what do? You start talking with her, and you start building that relationship through communication. And eventually, you leave home and start your own home with your new wife. So now your relationship with your mom kind of fades away because, maybe you call her once a week, call her on Mother's Day, that sort of thing. But you're not as close as you used to be. Now you're closer to your wife because every day you talk with your wife, every day you spend time with her, every day you care about her and she cares about you. You take care of her, she takes care of you. That's your personal relationship with your wife. And your relationship with God is the same way. If you don't talk to God, or you don't rely on God, or you don't trust God, then you don't have that personal relationship, and you don't have that personal religion. That's so important to your own inner peace, your own inner comfort. And so I think it's very important to remember to do that. I like to take what I've said before is like 15 minutes a day of just undivided attention with God. It's just that constant awareness of God's presence that builds and strengthens that relationship.
Very important. And I just want to comment on what Gabriel said of that God experiences his universe through us, and that's something that I when I realized that is that, okay, it's not just, this playground or this universe for me, but it's, it's through us because he's up there in heaven, but it's through us and through our experience that he lives this reality, and all of our hardships. And that's when I started to think, well, I should give God good experiences, try to not, and that's when you try to mend your ways, because all of us, kind of, that's part of life. You go here, you go there, you learn about stuff, you commit errors maybe and you mistakes, but once you start to analyze them and you see that didn't feel that good, you start to mend your ways, and then when you realize that God is also living his experience through you, then you try to, it becomes more holy, that relationship becomes more divine, and what you said, Rick, and that's something you've mentioned a lot of times, it's the personal relationships that you build with your family, with the people that you love, that you find those minutes or that time to spend with them, that you build that relationship. But you have to put that time into it. It's not that you're going to feel God and you're going to understand, or not that you'll ever understand God, right? But you understand a little bit more of life, and become a little bit wiser because you look for that. And you can't, do that when you're static or sitting down. So thank you for your comments. We're in almost done. We're going to talk now about the fruits of the spirit, and then we're going to talk about the tools.
Something that came to mind when Gabriel and Rick were talking was the difference between belief and faith. And belief is like a lot of people believe there's a higher power, but they don't really know much about it. And it's kind of a groundwork. It's a starting point. Faith is when you actually act on it. Faith is when belief changes your behavior. When your belief changes your behavior, it becomes faith. And one of the things that you were talking about was how people try to build that relationship with God. And one simple thing that I've done, and it works for me, is just to ask him to come with you on some adventure. Like, let's say you're going on a vacation. You could say, I'm going on this vacation. I would love if you would share it with me. And something as simple as that. And it fun fact, angels can't read your mind. So if you say it out loud, then you can also get them included. Anyway, it could be just something that simple. And I would recommend anybody who's watching this to just try it and see what happens. You might be surprised.
It's interesting, and I just want to mention, but one of my favorite directors, Dallas Jenkins, mentioned that that when he was young, he would think of as Jesus as his buddy, and he wanted to have that relationship, and that's why he started this whole Chosen. It's because he started to he saw that Jesus as his friend, and it's the same thing with God. It's like you're saying, you bring him into the adventure, invite him to your vacation,
Yeah,
and
when you're
think
that
of him.
close.
Exactly.
And it's surprising how things change when you verbalize something like that, and it just enhances, for me anyway, it enhances everything. It's amazing, really. And if you can get the angels involved, even better.
Yeah,
I have a friend who
that
had an
is true.
experience like that. He tells us a story of, and he'll know this when he hears this, he'll know who I'm talking about. But he had an experience. He was on a top of a mountain and enjoying this beautiful sunrise, sunset. I don't remember now, but this beautiful scenery. And he just took a moment and offered this view to God. for God to see through his eyes what he was seeing and the beauty of that. And he said it was one of the most profound experiences he ever had, because it was really a personal connection with God, because God was enjoying that view through his eyes. So never hesitate to invite God to share your experience.
That is beautiful.
Even if you're not sure,
Yeah.
just
Sure.
try it.
True. Now we're going to move into the fruits of the Spirit. Now, after all this, what yields? What happens when we do all this and we have this personal or religion, and we look for God and we look within our divine within? We bear the fruits of the Spirit, which is the harvest of religious living. And personal religion naturally produces spiritual qualities that transform character and relationships. These fruits of the Spirit are the natural outcomes of authentic religious experience. And the primary fruits of the Spirit, I mean, there's many, or I'm just going to focus on the primary, just to name a few, is living peace. That peace which passes all human understanding, a profound inner stability amid life's challenges. It doesn't take challenges away, it makes them bearable. Unbounded love, expanding capacity for selfless care and compassion towards all beings. There's got to a point where you start just crying, you feel love everywhere, that anything just, touches you. There's genuine joy, deep-seated happiness, not dependent on external circumstances. Patience, endurance, capacity to withstand difficulty with equanimity and perseverance. Inner goodness, natural expression of virtue without forced moralism. You're not giving virtue signaling anybody. It comes from the heart. It's faith, trust, unshakable confidence in divine goodness and purpose. And sometimes, and even in situations such horrific as probably the crucifixion, is that, why is there, what's the purpose of all this? But, in the end, and I don't want to get into all those details, but in the end, even a situation so hard and so bad can bring the ability to recognize truth and meaning through all pain and hardship. There's the gentle strength. It's the power expressed through kindness rather than dominance, and self-control. Mastery of impulses through higher motivation rather than suppression. And the evidence of true spiritual development consists in the exhibition of a human personality motivated by love, activated by unselfish ministry, and dominated by the wholehearted worship of the perfection ideals of divinity. So I want to ask Rick first. What are those fruits, and what fruits have you seen when you start living in this personal relationship with God?
Well, I think the first fruit that I experience is a reduction of fear. So, I still get nervous about things. I still get a little stressed about things, as anybody would, but it's that the lack of fear about what's going to happen in the end, because I know, as Gabriel was talking about earlier, that God will carry me through that. So my level of fear about the future, about some situation, is reduced because I know that God is carrying me at that time when there's only one set of footprints in the sand type thing. So there's that. I guess the reduction of fear. There's just the inner comfort inside that that this life is only the beginning. This is kindergarten, and there's what lies beyond is much more grand, much more. We're going to get away from all this, what I'll call animalistic behavior that we have and that people around us have. That's all going to fade away in the next life, and so I take quite a lot of comfort and peace in that, in knowing that, I guess. So, but I like to you talk about the fruits of the Spirit. I like to use analogies a lot. You'll notice that, I guess. But think about a tree that produces fruit, an apple tree. We're talking about the fruits of the Spirit. Let's talk about the fruits of an apple tree. You get this seed, you plant the seed in the ground, you fertilize it, you water it, you nurture it, and sometimes you have to go out and dig up weeds around it and fight the crabgrass or whatever and all that. But the tree finally grows, and someday it produces fruit, and that fruit then becomes, a hot apple pie that Susan fixed in the oven, and that's the fruit of that tree. And the fruits of the Spirit are the same way. They're the rewards for all that effort that you took to nurture that relationship with God and the relationship of people around you and all that. So I guess that's what the fruits of the Spirit means to me. Those are the rewards for your spiritual journey. The highs and the lows and the ups and the downs of the spiritual journey. Those are the rewards for going through all that.
Yeah, it's a little bit amorphic, I think we understand this expression, but I want to bring it a little bit down to earth, and talk about something that people heard about. Maybe it's a different angle about this. People say that there's karma, and what you reap is what you sow, and what goes around comes around, and all those things. And I think when I was trying to understand this on a very simple level, somebody explained this to me, and he said, if you go out in the world and you do something, you're basically telling the world and everybody around you, people, but maybe beyond people, that this thing is okay, this thing is permissible, this thing may be even good. And so you're saying to the world, you can do this back to me. It's okay. So, if you don't want people to lie to you, then don't lie to people. Because if you do, you're basically telling them it's okay to lie, or you can replace lie with everything else. So I think if I want to connect it to this thing, the fruit of the Spirit, is which world do I want to live in? Which people do I want to be associated with and friends with, or have relationships with? And who do I want to work with? Who do I want to serve as a client? And what is it that I need to do to attract whatever I want to have? And so it becomes a very selfish thing. Like, I want to have this life. So in order to have this life, I have to be whatever it is that this life, that the world will give it back to me. And of course, it's not perfect, but this model allows me to say, okay, I'm doing this. Yes, it's morally true, and it's good, and even God may be very happy with me. All those things are probably true as well. But do I want to have loving people in my life? Then I have to be loving. Do I have to want to have people that are kind to me? And some people may say, no, I don't care about that. And then, okay, fine. So you can be unkind to others, and they will be unkind to you. And if you don't care, you don't care. But deep down, most people do care. So the question is, okay, so what is it that I have to do to invite those fruits of the Spirit? And the simple answer is, okay, then how do I live with the Spirit, or how do I embody this Spirit? And then that becomes an exploration into, how do I live my life?
Good. And you touch on something that I'm going to move into a little bit further, which is, how do I live with the Spirit? What are probably the tools, or how do I make this, the fruits? But I think what you just said is very important, of what you do and with whom do you relate, is how, like you were saying, the karma, what you build. If you lie, you're going to build a world of lies. And I always, I like this analogy that if you take two guitars and, and you strum one chord, one string from one of the guitars, the other string on the opposite guitar is going to resonate, even if you didn't struck it. So we're in tune, and it depends on where and to whom we're in tuning. And not only to whom, but what kind of energy and actions are we bringing into the world, that are we creating. So it's all about our resonation. It's all about what string are we striking. Is it a positive string? Is it a negative string? What is it that we're bringing out into the world? And I like that what you just said, Gabriel. I think it's very, very powerful. Ian, do you wanna share something
Sure.
from Tutor?
Yeah, the tutor. Here we go. The tutor. The fruits of the Spirit are the natural and beautiful outcomes of a life lived in alignment with the divine will and spiritual truth. They represent the qualities and virtues that emerge as a person grows in their relationship with the divine and allows the Spirit within to guide their thoughts, decisions, and actions. These fruits are not forced or manufactured, rather, they are organic expressions of a soul that is increasingly attuned to the eternal values of truth, beauty, and goodness. At their core, the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, and peace. Love is the supreme fruit, encompassing selfless devotion to others, compassion, and the recognition of the divine presence in every being. It is the essence of spiritual living, as it reflects the very nature of the divine. Joy is the deep and abiding happiness that comes from knowing and trusting in the divine plan, regardless of the external circumstances. It is not dependent on the fleeting pleasures, but is rooted in the assurance of spirit realities. Peace is the inner calm and the harmony that arises from living in alignment with the divine will, free from the turmoil of fear, doubt, and conflict. Beyond these foundational fruits are the additional virtues that manifest in the spirit-led life, such as patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Patience reflects the ability to endure challenges and delays with grace, trusting in the unfolding of the divine timing. Kindness and goodness are expressions of a heart that seeks to uplift and serve others, embodying the principles of love and compassion. Faithfulness is a steadfast commitment to spiritual ideals and the trustworthiness that comes from living with integrity. Gentleness reflects humility and a tender approach to others, while self-control demonstrates mastery over one's impulses and desires, ensuring that the actions are guided by higher values rather than base instincts.